Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Emphasis Added, a podcast brought to you by the Houston Law Review. I'm one of your Season 6 hosts, Grayson Meckler.
And I'm your other Season 6 host, Jeffrey Okola.
Today, we have the honor of speaking with Judge Sofia Adrogué, one of the inaugural judges of the Texas Business Courts. Judge Adrogué has had a remarkable career in litigation, business law, and public service. She's a graduate of the University of Houston Law Center, Rice University, and the Harvard Business School Owner-President Management Program, as well as being a distinguished trial lawyer and a recognized leader in the legal community. Judge Adrogué, thank you so much for joining.
I'm very excited. Thank you for having me.
We always like to begin the show by discussing our guest's background and allowing the audience to become better acquainted with who we'll be speaking with today. Judge Adrogué, you have an inspiring personal story, immigrating here from Argentina and developing an amazing legal career. Could you tell us a bit about your background?
Well, thank you very much. Everyone has their own story. I don't know if mine is unique or otherwise, but honored to discuss it. Born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Ostensibly, we being my parents, 5 siblings, mom and dad and the 5 of us. My kids laugh at me as I talk about my 14 suitcases in a dream story. It was about to be 50 years ago, October 5th, 1975. Ostensibly 1 year. My father had a medical research grant paying $5,000, which is about the equivalent to $20,000 plus, not a significant amount today. Coming for 1 year, and that was a journey of a lifetime. Logan Airport, Boston, Massachusetts, barely spoke English, and my life began all over again.
So we noticed you earned your bachelor's degree in English and Legal Studies from Rice University, and you went to the Harvard Business School. Did you always know you wanted to pursue law?
In our family, as immigrants, I surprised like many of us, whether immigrants or not, if you come from a family where there's a lot of focus on education, and if you don't have the luxury of having the wealth, what are you going to be able to do? And the idea for us was you really had one choice or 2 choices. You could be a lawyer or a doctor. From my perspective, I'm not exactly sure why I chose law over medicine. They're both incredible, but the decision being law, so at Rice University, I did everything I could to really be exposed to writing and reading and thinking. And then ultimately did that, went to Rice. Legal studies no longer exists. It's basically history and philosophy amalgamation. And ultimately went to U of H Law School. I was inordinately fortunate, always very nerdy. Way back, referencing as an immigrant, I would always win the reading contest at the library. That's how I learned to really get a sense of the English language. The goal then was in law school, the best I could do. And really, I have to be thankful, obviously for the law review, which we'll discuss, I'm sure, but for the law school. The law school took a chance on me. I went for a full scholarship to Rice University, and U of H Law School did the same for me. And that was a distinction with a great difference. It allowed me then to do something like at the age of 40, do a 3-year program at Harvard Business School and become an alumni. But for having the opportunity at U of H and not having to pay for my education, where most people don't have that opportunity, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Well, again, this is an inspiring story that shows kind of your commitment to education and your zeal to take advantage of the opportunities that have been afforded to you. I guess touching on your background, how has that shaped your perspective as an advocate and even as a judge, specifically, that focus on education?
Thanks. I would say I very much believe, and this is not a statement I created, but I think it's worthwhile to regurgitate and reiterate, I think education is the equalizer. I think that this country is an amazing country. Nothing's perfect, but it does afford a lot of opportunity. Houston happens to also be particularly and beautifully situated. There's a great book entitled by a Rice professor, Houston at the cusp of a changing America, the prophetic city at a cusp of a changing America. It is a melting pot of all of these diverse cultures. So I would say as follows: the education factor has got me an opportunity to be in a lot of rooms, and then ideally succeeding, then puts you at the table. And I do think it is a point of differentiation. It was for me in law school. It was for me in high school. It was for me in law school, obviously at Rice. And not everyone has the opportunity to not have to work 2 or 3 jobs, so you can do the reading and the writing. It is, though, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It is, I call it, it's the grit, grind, and the gravitas. It is a lot of work. There's nothing easy about it. There's no magic formula. People will ask me often, well, how do you do all these different things? It's called a lot of coffee drinking and a lot less sleep. And people will ask me, well, if you were to define yourself or your trajectory, I'll say it's about caffeinated and oxygenated. Caffeinated always and oxygenated with life. And the education, getting back to the original question, truly has been my conduit. Doesn't have to be everyone's conduit, but it has been my conduit to an inordinate number of opportunities, with, of course, luck and everything else, because you've got to be also at the right place at the right time.
Again, that was a a very important answer, and I feel like it resonates with my life as well. Immigrated here from Nigeria, and my parents have echoed the same sentiments that, hey, education is something that no one can ever take from you. Education is your only inheritance. So that is a great driving force, and it can really change lives. It can change lives many times over.
And for all of those watching, I'm sure you can see on the wall behind Judge Adrogué all of these amazing people she's met. So this kind of follows in that vein, and all of these people. Which role models or mentors have you had in your life that have made like a very significant impact on where you are now?
Thank you. I'll start. Everyone, or most people, have the luxury of having one family member. My parents are amazing. My family's amazing. I've got 3 kids, adore. My father's my hero. My father is one of 14 brothers and sisters, 13 that survived. You know, my father and mother in their early 30s came with 5 children. My mother did not speak any English. My father primarily textbook medical school English, and started life all over. 5 children under the age of 10. And it was inordinately difficult. And my father has done what he's done. He is world renowned for his research. He started in heart, lungs. He added kidney and is known as one of the top nephrologists in the world, has diabetes formulas, et cetera, but along the way always instilled the work ethic, the education, but the focus on family first. So that's one. But then along the way, you get lucky. Amazing woman. I'll tell you, one of my absolute favorites is Judge Ruby Sondag, trailblazer extraordinaire. Of course, U of H graduate, of course, first in her class, also the first woman on the Texas Supreme Court appointed, also the first woman judge in Houston at 99 in April coming up, still one of the trailblazers, one of my mentors. Another is Steve Sussman. I had the luxury, because I could focus on my education and it worked. I was able to have a chance to work at Sussman Godfrey after I clerked on the Fifth Circuit when I got out of law school. And he was a mentor. My 5th edition of my business litigation textbook, which I'm happy to discuss how I got there, is dedicated to him. But I will say this. You may get lucky enough to have a mentor or a hero, but sometimes you just get the lucky of observing. But that luck is something you create. So don't overestimate the value of a mentor, because you may or may not have one, but it's also something you have to really cultivate and work with. I spent a lot of time trying to spend time with Steve Sussman or with Judge Sondag. Of course, my father, I was lucky enough I hit the lottery. But that doesn't mean, though, even if you don't have one, you can't observe, you can't create your own opportunity by seeing others and their trajectory. Because There's a lot of legal giants. There's a lot of U of H Law School legal giants. There's a lot of Houstonians. There's a lot of Texans. And it's worthy of consideration.
So I guess what you just said pretty much makes it clear that mentorship and having some type of guidance is going to be very, very important in the legal field. It's not just about, putting your head down. And sometimes it comes down to luck, being in the right place at the right time, running to the right people who are willing to kind of take you under their wing and impart knowledge onto you. But there is some effort in that as well, i.e. making sure you're at the right place at the right time, taking the initiative by, watching people and picking up the habits that they brought them to the place of success. I guess pivoting a little bit to law school, or your time at law school, you went to the University of Houston Law Center, our alma mater, and you were also on the law review while you were there. So what was your experience at the University of Houston like during your time there?
Absolutely, and thank you. And I'll say one thing, if you'll indulge me prior to discussing the law review. You do have to earn it. You do have to earn it. If you look at my trajectory, I've served on 20 nonprofit boards. I've spoken or written over 200 times. I truly spend all my life focused on whether it's my jurisprudential efforts, my law, my profession, my community, or my family. It is absolutely doable. It's not done by many because it isn't always fun. And I will say, as we pivot to the law review, at the beginning, it is a lot of having your head down and getting the work done. That's how you first differentiate yourself. And then you add the extra work, which is the community and others. That doesn't leave a lot of time for frivolity. I don't think people would say I'm like super fun. I think they'd say I've engaged, I've lived a lot. Lots of amazing people I've met along the way. But every one of them was through a cause, was through a community effort. And that's a point of differentiation. Getting to a specific question. Well, first of all, University of Houston Law School. They gave me a free ride. What can I say? I have to confess, though, I cried when I got it. Why? Some cheers of happiness, but tears of, well, then I knew I had to go. A part of me really wanted to go to school in the East Coast, but I was the first in my family not to go to law school ever, but I'm the eldest of the 5. And I did not want my parents to suffer at all because of any economic ramifications of mine going to law school. So I lived at home and went to school for free. I wanted to go back to the East Coast. So at first I thought, okay, I'm here. I'm not going to be in the East Coast. So then I felt the pressure. I knew if I wanted to accomplish what I could have done more easily at another school, and U of H has only increased in value, I needed to be at the top of my game. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know the word plaintiff or defendant. Overwhelming. And then you have no idea what's going to happen. And then you deliver or not. You've got a week. It's crazy. If you think about the recipe for success or failure, it can go either way. I mean, I'm sorry. What recipe is this? You have to deliver during 1 week period, of which, God forbid, you feel like heck, and you usually do. And you have to deliver on that subject day after day after day after day. And if it happens, you hit the lottery. I don't want to utilize the same as I did for my father, not the same lottery. But if not, what the heck? I got lucky, super lucky. So then I got graded on something called law review. I had no idea what law review was. I remember an amazing woman named Bonnie that helped us type everything. You need to remember, I didn't have my own computer. I mean, I was at Rice in law school and had to borrow to type. Okay, very different world. Law review was fascinating, not fancy. We had very few rooms. We were all kind of crunched together. I remember the blue book. I remember the green book. Lots of late nights and lots of people just, nerds unite. and doing what we could. I got the luxury of having my piece published in 1991, but then I got a piece published in 2000, and then a few years later with the e-publication. So, inordinately honored to be a member of the Law Review. Although, let me say this, nothing against Law Review. It's unbelievable. If you get it, take it. If you don't get it, it's okay. None of it has to define you. You can still make it in another journal. You can still make it doing moot court competition or just surviving and thriving in your own there. You don't need it, but it is a nice point of differentiation.
So I'm curious, you got published while you were on Law Review. Did you know that you wanted to publish work before?
Of course not.
Okay.
I had no idea.
But you were an English major in college.
Right, but I had no idea. I just went to law school and then Law Review, and they asked, did I want to publish my piece? I said, absolutely. And so you do your best. No, I do though, getting back to my father. Cumulatively, he's written 9 books on the 3 major organs. So did I probably somewhere think I better do something of value and publish or perish? So, and if you'll allow me, if you don't mind terribly, I'll pivot. I'm not letting you do the interview. I'm doing so poorly. I'll pivot to the deal toy. So, but what's important about this? This is called tangible ramification of an opportunity. But an opportunity, the first one was published, I'm on my 5th edition. First one was published 2014, 2015. But prior to that, I had been writing or speaking since 1995. You hear the number of years. I first got asked to speak about business torts and business litigation when I was at Sussman Godfrey. Second year, one of the partners is moving to Seattle to open the office and says, I've got to do a speech for U of H Law School. They used to have these great CLEs. And I need you to write the speech on business litigation, business torts, and give it. I said, of course I'll write it, but I don't really think I should be giving it. No one is going to want to hear a second-year associate at Sussman Godfrey versus a partner. Well, he said, well, I'm leaving and you're writing it, so you give it. So that started a great opportunity. But this is the point. I wrote it. It took hours and hours, non-billable hours. So what do? You try to see, can you publish it elsewhere? So then I heard of something called the Fifth Circuit Reporter, which was a reporter that would come out quarterly, and it would track the federal court cases for Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. So I saw that there was a lawyer older than I was from Dallas that I had been in a case with. I thought, I'm just going to reach out to her. She's the editor-in-chief. So I called her. I said, hi, I'm the associate on this case. I'm at Sussman Godfrey. I just wrote on business litigation. If you ever need, I just wrote 50 pages. If there's ever anything, she goes, oh, well, send me what you have. So I sent it. She goes, well, do you want to become the author for the business torts for the quarterly article? I said, of course. So I did that for 15 plus years, 4 times a year. Then when I was doing that, one day I walk into my friend's office and I see that he was the editor-in-chief of Texas Tech Law Review at one point. I said, well, that's kind of fun. Are you still involved? He said, yes, I'm involved. We put out once a year a piece, which is an amalgamation of jurisprudential highlights of different subjects. I said, oh, well, I do this quarterly work. It's really kind of painful. Now that especially I have 3 children, it's really painful. What do you think? If you ever need, I wouldn't mind taking all the work I do in those 4 times a year and creating a law review article of the best business litigation. He said, do you want me to pitch the idea? I said, please. Well, then I did 10 of those. Finally, how does this come to fruition? I get asked if I could be part of a think tank. Most significant publisher of legal books and legal journals in the country. They publish the Texas Lawyer, National Law Journal, a litany of things, American Lawyer. And I get an email asking if I could be on a call. They wanted to do, a dozen lawyers were asked to do this for a year. Once a month, you have to do a conference call, and you have to give different things that ask you different prompts. Bottom line, after a year, we don't have time to discuss all of it. Punchline is they were actually looking to who would be the inaugural editor of the Texas Business Litigation Journal. And I became it. I asked my dear friend, Caroline Baker, who's a judge, Judge Caroline Baker, because my thought was, well, you want to listen to me, from me, maybe, but you want experts. Steve Sussman helped me pick the inaugural 20 authors, and then we added a judge.
Again, it seems like the theme is hard work, creating opportunities.
You nailed it. You nailed it. Connections, but earned connections. So you make the connections. It is about, but it's the authenticity in those connections. What people also know about me, I don't forget. And I pay it forward. You're exactly right. I mean, you both have encapsulated, but you know the beauty of this success? That you all can earn it. And there is not one facile definition of success, nor happiness for that matter. And we got to touch on happiness, because the practice of law is a bear. I can give you a better word. There is a reason why there's more people that are addicted to over-the-counter, to alcohol, other drugs. I get it. We all get it. My drug of choice is coffee. But I get it. It's tough work. So the authenticity, the connectivity, the friendships, and engaging in something that defines you just much more than the billable hour. You have my word. I could have made a lot more money. But I will tell you, I survived still smiling as a lawyer 30 years into it because of the connectivity, because of what you opt to do with your law degree. And then you can create your own happiness. It's very internal. Every day you've got this, Power Woman pose, Superman pose, whatever the heck you want to call it. Very internal. And then you just go.
So it's not just the work itself, but you also have to do the internal work of finding your why, finding why do I do this, or even better, what keeps me going. And that is just as important as the work, because it's what makes it sustainable in the long run.
There's no doubt. There's no what. And the how sometimes changes, okay? Sometimes you're going to have moments, you may just be on an upward trajectory that doesn't stop, and you're in a bullet train the entire time. But you know what? Sometimes you may get slow. You may have to slow down because life intervenes. Everyone has a cross to bear. Take that cross, take that path. Try not to exit completely. I will say this, if you off-ramp, it's really hard to on-ramp again. And there's actual studies about it in the Harvard Business Review context. It's hard to on-ramp if you've off-ramped. But it's a balance. It's a balance in quotations.
You're sharing amazing advice with the audience, sharing amazing advice with us. But we kind of will pivot.
Okay.
Since we've talked about, your career, or not your career, we talked about kind of your background. We've talked about your time at University of Houston, as well as your time at Law Review. But you also have a distinguished career as a trial attorney. So I was curious about what drew you to litigation, and what was the things about being a trial attorney that really piqued your interest?
I will tell you, this is not a good story because it's going to sound like, what the heck? The truth is, one of you is going to litigation, one of them is going to corporate. I get both. I think there's a real beauty in having a business deal and being part of not only being the scribe, but you're there at the outset and you're wanting to put a deal together. And ideally you put it together in a way that guarantees success. but there's no guarantee. And then I get your interest in being a litigator. The truth is, I got exposed. I was very fortunate, like you guys, gender neutral, of course, was on law review, had lots of opportunities when I got out. And I went to bigger firms initially where they had corporate and litigation. But I ultimately was taken aback and excited about Sussman Godfrey. And there it was just business litigation. So it's just litigation. So I ultimately made that choice. Do I think I could have been just as happy in corporate? I think so. Litigation, though, has been absolutely incredibly interesting. Why? Because you end up, I've done everything from, pharmaceutical litigation, mass tort litigation, to business deals, to everything in between. I ended up doing a fair amount in administrative law before a medical board. It allows you for a nanosecond to become an expert in a field. And I've done oil and gas, I've done IP light. I mean, it's just, that's what you get the luxury of doing as a litigator. You get a luxury of taking a problem. You get a luxury of having usually an entrepreneur or a small business, bigger business, or large if you, depend about where you go, and you have a problem. You have to analyze it. You have to become an expert in it. You have to be able to tell the story. You have to be able to sell it. There may be some blacks, some grays, some whites. And then you do the best always by your client. Now, what is complicated a bit about litigation is less than 1% of the cases ever go to trial. So ensure along the way you like the ride. Also be really great with co-counsel and opposing counsel. You never know when you may need that extension. Treat everyone with grace. You may be on their side one day.
Yeah, you do always hear in law school, like, the Houston and the Texas legal community is so small.
Oh,
So you never want to burn any bridges
Don't.
by being a...
don't. It doesn't inure to your benefit, and it will come back. Though remember, always give everyone the benefit of the doubt the first time. And also just your colleagues in law school. One of my favorite friends who really was helpful, including with my now serving on this bench, he's a guy that, not law review, just did a great job, just did his own thing, just was a good guy. Ended up being incredibly successful. He was Board of Regents of Texas, although went to A&M. He then he was a judge. He's done a litany of things. And one day I said, why were you so nice to me? I mean, he's been my friend for 30 years, like real friend. I mean, I call him up in 2 seconds. He goes, because you always treated everyone great. If someone needed your notes, you gave them. You didn't protect anything. I said, there's nothing to protect. I don't know if they were good. I was just trying to copiously write and survive. Makes a difference.
It definitely does. I guess I have a litigation-specific question as an aspiring litigator myself. As you stated earlier, a lot of cases don't go to trial.
Yes.
How do you recommend young litigators get that necessary trial experience to learn how to, not just the discernment of determining whether it's like black, gray, or white, but learn how to kind of sell your case to regular people, either in the jury box or the judge themselves?
No, I think great question. I guess a couple of things I would say. First of all, some firms, and try to see if there is in your situation, will allow young associates to take on pro bono cases that end up have a trial in municipal court or something else, and there's that opportunity. Or there is, through the Houston Bar Association, legal lines or things that you can do things like that. So that's obviously one direction and a great one. The other is just what's also happened. Actually, Steve Sussman was the impetus for it, and Caroline Baker, my co-editor, helped create it, help implement it in the court system. There is an actual provision that most judges adhere to, and the business courts have been asked, and of course we'll do it. And it is, if you give a young lawyer the opportunity to give a hearing, you'll get a hearing faster. Now in business court, we're small enough so far that we give everyone hearings. But in the district court, they have so many cases, the volume is not there to allow everyone to have hearings on every matter. But so if you're willing to give an opportunity. So go out there and ask. And the other aspect, and I'm going to say is this, and it may not appear as linear of an opportunity, but there's a litany of reasons why I would say do this. Get involved. What I've served, as I referenced previously, on 20 nonprofit boards. That is a recipe for success on a litany of levels, including the now current Chief Judge of the Fifth Circuit talks about this. You get the chance to then sell. You get a chance to know about a particular community or industry or type of project, and then you get to be on a board and you get to know others. You are then selling yourself and your ability outside of just law. And those skills, they appear soft, but there's nothing soft about them. Because really, as a lawyer, you're a conciliator, you're an advocate, you're a mediator. But you're more than anything, you just have to get your point across and you have to be effective. So it's just learning how to be at the table, whether it's a litigation table, community table, board table, and just getting the chance to be there and then deliver with excellence with lots of preparation. So I don't know if that kind of answers it, but that's the best answer I can give you now.
What I took from your answer is pretty much keep working hard, take initiative.
Take every opportunity. Like, one of my favorite things I ever did, sorry to cut you off, was this is awesome. Steve Sussman sends an email and he says, who knows anything about Shakespeare? I didn't know why. I emailed, I said, well, I was an English major at Rice. I know a little. And he goes, well, I need to do, the federal bar is doing, federal bar, the Houston Bar Foundation are doing the trial of Hamlet. And I'm going to be, Harry Reisner is another legal giant. So by the way, my quotations, Harry Reisner, former managing partner of Vincent Elkins, extraordinaire, did all this great work for the state of Texas at Vincent Elkins, and Ruby Sondog. But I did that with Steve. There I was with other Joe Jameo, Racehorse Haynes, Racehorse Haynes on that one, and Harry Reisner, and it was all about the trial of Hamlet. We know how it ends, but we did a great job. And I helped prep him.
Wait, was it like a fictional trial or?
Oh no, it was a fictional trial. It was so fun. At the courthouse. It was amazing. It was so long ago that Judge Gilmore was actually contemplating being on the bench, and of course she's been on and off more than 25 years ago. It was incredible. Take every opportunity. He then asked in an email saying, I'm going to teach at UT. Who wants to help with the syllabus? I spoke up. That inspired me so much. I then heard there may be an opportunity to teach mass tort litigation. I'd only been licensed 3 years, and I taught mass tort litigation at the law school. I had 50 students. Among them, a very famous one that ended up doing quite well, running for mayor, and he's done a lot of things along the way. Also went to U of H.
Oh, yeah. Just like taking all of those experiences. And another experience we want to talk to you about, and one that I'm excited to talk to you about, is when you were a co-host for Latina Voices.
Yes.
How was that experience?
Well, first of all, how I got there, that's another. Okay, I had been asked to give a speech for a think tank, women's think tank. And Gloria Steinem, for those feminists out there, had been the keynote speaker the year before. So I was stressed out of my mind to do this, but we did it. We got through. And at the end, the MC, it's about 1,000 women, came up to me and said, you know, I've been with Channel 13 for all these years. I've been inspired by The View, but there's not the ethnic diversity that I want. And at the time, it was there's a lot more diversity now, pre all that diversity. And this is 12 plus years ago. And she said, would you want to do a pilot for a TV show? I said, TV show? I'm not funny. I have to make money practicing law. I've got 3 kids and I don't sleep. Really? She goes, could you just do one and see what you think? I said, why me? They said, everyone said, if I'm going to do one with Latinas, you have to be involved. Fast forward, we do a pilot. It's me, Minerva Perez, and one other amazing woman, Patty Grass, who was already on PBS, and Minerva was on Channel 13. Long story short, we do a pilot. Houston says, HTV at City Hall says they'll give you a studio. So I had a studio on the first floor of City Hall. Ended up I've done more than 130, interviewed lots of amazing Justice Sotomayor. I've interviewed archbishops, cardinals, I've interviewed mayors, all of these amazing people, Congress people. And won the equivalent of Oscars for public television for the 100th show. And the impetus, okay, we're going right back. Education. Engage, educate, and inspire. And so my goal is to do in 30 minutes to give you a human interest story. And sometimes they're easy ones, sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're facing tough things like DACA or the utilization of weapons. Sometimes it's truly feel good, like a woman boxer that wanted to box and ended up going to the Olympics. And all along the way, we have a smart talk segment at the front end where you voraciously have read. And usually I'm like 3 or 4 in the morning trying to read my smart talk book. But then you deliver an opportunity for someone. It's been incredible. I have to take a hiatus right now while I'm a judge, but it's the longest show running on HTV. So it's still running.
I think we have to ask who's been your favorite guest so far.
Oh, get out. Look, you know what? Let me just say this. Sadly, probably 3 of my favorites have passed away. Mayor Turner, Archbishop Firenze, and Father Martinez. But you know what? Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. But there's so many incredible ones that are still alive and well and doing great things. Mayor Parker, Justice Guzman, Judge Sondak, I could go on and on. Astronauts, not so famous people. But the point of why are they there? Because they do engage, they do inspire, and they do. And I've also actually, one of the things I do completely under the radar is for 5 years, I've helped the kids in incarceration. Because 95 to 98% of all the kids in incarceration are African American or Hispanic. Inordinately tragic and draconian figure that is not sustainable. So I had one of our colleagues who has been the helm of trying to make changes in that for a long time. I've had a man that was on death row for 20 years for a crime he didn't commit. It's all about inspiration. All walks of life. Just walk the talk. Talk is cheap.
I guess to touch on that, those sound like pro bono opportunities.
All pro bono.
All pro bono. Could you talk about kind of like the importance of pro bono as well as what role it's played in like shaping your career?
Well, he says as follows. I'm an accident. I can't tell you. I didn't know what a board was. I'm flipping through because I want to say this well. These are my notes. Okay. Don't laugh. Always have notes. These are 7 different subject matter dialogues and all in plastic sheets because you prepare. You prepare for everything. So I would say I had no idea what pro bono publico was. I didn't know what a board was. You just get asked to participate. And let me give you, it's interesting. I had the luxury, and it was an honor, very recently to give a keynote speech for the Houston Bar Foundation, which is the pro bono arm for all of the great work of the Houston Bar. And last year's keynote speaker was former Chief Justice Hecht. So I could never fill those shoes, couldn't even try. But I wanted to deliver exactly the question you posed. And the reality is, I'm going to read you the title, but it will give you the punchline and the recipe in the title. I entitled it, Doing Well, Indeed Great by Doing Good. Pro bono publico is what it's called. Profesional or professional, y personal personal. The professional duty case, which we have as lawyers. The wellness case and the business case. Let me quickly give you a little. We do have a professional onus as officers of the court. It's aspirational, but it's there to do 50 hours a year at least. Now, some of us do very traditional, and they do the legal lines, but you don't have to do traditional. You can join a board. You can get involved with a group. You can do big brothers, big sisters, whatever it may be. Just get out there. I would say, so it's the professional duty case, but then it's the wellness case. It brings you a level of, I think, resilience, perspective, along the way that is really relevant. And in the moment where you're doing these egregious continued hours, the billable hour, it's nice to do something else. And that gives you the wellness factor. And I mean, it's documented. There's a happiness quotient. You can earn this much, and at that point it plateaus. But how do you still stay well internally? That's not insignificant. Don't forget about yourself. And I don't mean just go run and jog. You can do that, that's fine. But I'm all about a bit more. And I barely run. I barely jog. I just drink coffee and don't sleep a lot. That may not be everyone's recipe. The business case. You're going to meet people. You're going to meet people. Maybe it won't be the person that can pay your hourly rate, but maybe they'll recommend someone that can. Or you'll get that great new pro bono case that will get you that trial you want. Or maybe you'll be chair of a board, and then you have a whole other opportunity. And it increases the humanitarian aspect of you. And don't underestimate the power of that. As a lawyer, as a negotiator. One of my favorite quotations from one of my Harvard Business School professors was about the negotiation table being thousands of kilometers wide and long and deep. And how does that play in for the statement I just made? If you have myopically focused first on law review and then your billable hour and you've never left your desk, you haven't experienced life. And yes, the practice of law is absolutely inordinately difficult, and it is about the reading and it is about the writing, but it's a lot more than that. And whether pro bono or community or otherwise, it is a point of differentiation. And I think there's a professional duty case, there's a wellness case, and the business case.
Again, very, very compelling, specifically, how pro bono makes you not only a better lawyer, because again, you're getting reps, that professional aspect, gives you perspective,
Yes.
and it's fulfilling work because a lot of times, at least it's my understanding of how the law works, on a big scale, if you're out here pursuing the billable hour, you might not see the benefit of that like materialize right away. Cases go on for years and years and years. But with pro bono work cases also go on years and years and years. But you're talking directly with somebody and you are seeing the direct impact of like what you're doing is helping people. And that is like another level of fulfillment.
There's no doubt. And the other thing is this, I was thinking about this as I was starting to think of other quotations of my favorite HBS professors. And I would say, along the way, if within your career, you start developing your sense of self and you're imprimatur, and at some point, business school talks about what's the special dessert you bring to the table, what's your brand. But I love this quotation. Your brand should not be a goal. It's a reward. You have to create something of value. So your brand as a lawyer needs to be your point of differentiation, but you have to earn it. And it's really hard to differentiate yourself and earn it if you're not leaving the office. Now that means very long hours, okay? Between the billable hours and the going to events, and you don't meet people at your desk, Zooming is not the answer. With all due respect, and don't check it in on Zoom. Always camera on. Always camera on. And if not, your excuse better be amazing. And try to reschedule if that's the case. Earn your way to the table and then make the most of it.
I love that you say that. I think that's I think that's such good advice. And I feel like in the post-COVID world, it is so easy to be reclusive and not go out and meet people and just be let's do it over Zoom and let's not have our camera on. But it is so important.
So it's everything. Eye contact is everything. And if you were to ask me, how did I get to now that I get to serve on the bench? All of these relationships absolutely made a difference Governor Abbott wrote a letter for me when I became outstanding Texan and outstanding American 10, 15 plus years ago. These are relationships you build. You earn them, and then you invest in them. And that's just one of a litany of them.
I guess on the topic on your appointment to the bench, what motivated you to take on this role at this stage in your career?
Thank you. I was inordinately lucky to have advocacy and encouragement from, quite frankly, great friends, some justices, including one, Justice Evan Young, which I love his quotation. And he was saying this to me at the same time. He said, Sophia, the new business court is the most substantial modification of the judicial system of our state since 1891, and the first court to be inaugurated in 60 years. It was inordinately interesting to be at a startup state. One thing I haven't said, but I love this acronym, the genesis was COVID, as you specifically referenced, which COVID, of course, was transformative on a litany of levels for people. But there's a great McKinsey Consulting, I'll have to give them credit, it's not mine, acronym, which I think is also applicable to the business court, which is why I'm saying it. The acronym is SHAPE. S, startup mentality. It's a startup. H, human at the core. A, acceleration of the digital data. P, purpose-driven customer playbook. And E, ecosystem and adaptability. That's what I'm doing here. This is a startup. We are 60 years, first court. Although this is not, concept is not new or innovative per se. 30 business courts are commercially focused courts across the country. What is special, what is unique, of course, we're Texas, go big or go home. It is big and bold. How is it big and bold? Be cognizant of as follows. You've got Delaware Chancery Court, which of course, Court of Equity. They also have a commercial court. New York has it, New Jersey, 30 plus. The highest level demarcation that we've been able to find outside of Texas, jurisdiction, 1 million in Delaware, 500,000 New York. In Texas, 5 million if you're publicly traded and or have a governance component, or 7 other subject matters, we won't get into all of it, or a $10 million transaction. So they're not easy to get in. You've got to have a certain sizable case. But if you do, you're here. And so to people visit with you and advocate for such a court was fascinating. It was absolutely a tough decision in some ways because I absolutely adored what I was doing in the practice of law. I was also starting to serve on some boards that economically rewarded me for my time. I was also starting to be considered for some publicly traded company boards. That said, I had years before, in the 90s, been asked to run for judge. So I had actually won the bar poll 3-1, lost by early votes, but really had over 1,000 people support me, 200 people out there in the polls in the 1990s. So I always knew that I had learned that the prospect of serving as a judge would be incredible. I just somewhat stopped that career path when I did not win, wrong party at the time. And so I just then kept doing what I was doing. But this was an opportunity that I felt I couldn't not take.
In your answer, you kind of discussed about the Texas Business Courts and how it's kind of new but not really novel, and it's a very, very ambitious, it's an ambitious project, and you have to kind of have a startup mentality to kind of get it started. Does that create any type of pressure for you, in being, I guess, one of the first judges on this?
Of course there's pressure. I mean, you're hyper scrutinized. And imagine the beauty of this job. The lawyers are extraordinary. Super credentialed, super prepared. Most of them are my vintage or older. So many are 30 years out, 40 years out, some 50 years out. I've already had several justices of the 14th Court of Appeals. I'm sitting in the seat where they were because I'm getting the luxury of being interviewed by both of you at the 1st and 14th Court of Appeals, the 1910 historic courthouse. We couldn't videotape in there, but you guys promised me you're going to take a few pictures and share with the audience, and I'll be glad to give you some pictures as well. And it's a historic place. My day-to-day, if you come and there's a hearing, it's at the 14th Court of Appeals most likely. If it's a TI and there's got just some witnesses, it's here. If we have a full trial, we're going to have to go to the civil district courthouse because we don't have a jury box if it's a jury trial. So the situation is, of course, it's stressful. It's stressful because we exude the desire for excellence. They're great cases. They're hard cases. And I'm in an aberrational role to what I did for 30 years. And I've got to be thoughtful. I've got to be expeditious. I've got to have the right judicial temperament, which is giving equal opportunity, which is listening. I have to get it right. And I have to judge. And there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. And I know almost everyone that appears before me. Not easy.
How do you balance that pressure then? How do you handle it?
Compartmentalize. I call it my final mode for each decision. Like when you guys leave, I have a pretty big decision to make, 17 causes of action. Final mode. And we'll just books, cases. I have a great court counsel who's a law school grad. I have amazing inaugural spring and fall interns from the law school that were here. Many not from law review, and I had a law review one, and more are coming. And you just try to gather. You try to jurisprudentially. You've got to do your work. You've got to read, you've got to follow the law, and you voraciously read, you focus, you do your darnest, and pray you get it right. And go to the next final.
And that seems, again, very, very intimidating, but just doing the best you can do. It's
right. And then go to the next one.
So for those who don't know too much about the Texas business courts, like the young law students watching, where exactly do the Texas business courts fit into the hierarchy of courts?
Great question. So what it is it's fascinating because we're really a hybrid court. Why do I say that? Among other things, we're required to write opinions, certain circumstances. Where we fit into the hierarchy, first, great question. Basically, we are on par with the civil district courts. And there's over 500 civil district courts. That's my coffee going. It's incentivized me to drink more. We'll be back. Yeah. 500. So there's 504 civil district courts, almost 300 counties across Texas. I'm in line with the trial courts, but we are appointed, so we're not running for election, which is a great point of differentiation. And so we're on. However, we have to write opinions when, if asked, and or importance to the jurisprudence of the state. Early on, we're absolutely encouraged, incentivized to write. That's another huge part of the job. Because one thing is to say it, and yes, there may be a court reporter, but most people will never hear it. One thing is to write it, and then it's on Westlaw. And it becomes precedent. And it becomes, you've got those little keys. And you don't want to have appellate action. Almost everything we're doing right goes straight up. So far, we'll see what happens.
Again, amazing.
Did that give you some?
Yeah.
I do a great, does that give you a sense of it's then you have to get the right economics to get in, right? Then it's jurisdictional issues, just like the rest. But they can choose. You can have the same business case. Now, we know all your transactions are going to go great. We know you will never have to hire your colleague. But if you do, you guys will strategize gender neutrally again. And you may come to the business court, or you can go to the civil district court. That'll be a choice you make. You can do either one. And why do you choose one over the other? The civil district court is inundated with cases. They may have 2,000. They do all the personal injury, they do others. We don't do personal injury. We don't do a litany of cases. So our docket is significantly less. Now, Houston right now has 50% of all the cases. We have basically a combination of Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Austin. Wow. It is a huge docket in comparison. Really, the numbers don't do it justice if you look at what the civil district court judges do. But it definitely is, it is not for everyone. But if you're here, you're going to come see me, and we're going to do almost like a case management conference. Well, really, like federal one, within 30 days after someone answers. So we're in, and we're strategizing, and we're coming up with the expert deadlines. We're coming up with everything. And if you don't have a jury, you go into trial within a year. And if you have a jury, up to 18 months. But we can do it faster. Maybe. We'll try. If we can get there, we will.
Again, these are just perks that come with the business court, that expertise, the speed of the business court, as well as, since y'all have written opinion, you're building that precedent for Texas. So it operates both kind of like a trial court, but also that hybrid model, that like an appellate court, because you're, again, providing written opinions that will be precedent. And I know you mentioned earlier how, again, it's very ambitious. There's only New York and I believe Delaware who are
jurisdictional demarcations. Yes.
Jurisdictional demarcations. Yes. But I was wondering, is there a difference between what Texas is doing versus Delaware? And if so...
Well, okay. All right. I'm going to say this. I'm smart enough to say there's a lot of smart judges. And there's a lot of great work done across the country. As a matter of fact, I'm about to go speak. Berkeley has a law and business school. And they have a business and law center, and I'm speaking there, and then I'm speaking for others at the law school. But the bottom line is this. They're having me with a Delaware judge and a Nevada judge. Nevada's one of the new courts, and then it's Delaware, the old-timer among them. And this is what I would say. Of course, if I were the governor, we would talk about everything's bigger and better in Texas. I will just say this. Do I believe that we are going to make a point of differentiation? Absolutely. The stakes are higher in our cases right now? Maybe, because of those jurisdictional. Do you have 10 judges? We are one court, the business court. We work with each other. We look at each other's opinions. We talk to each other. We Zoom, camera on, unless we tell each other. Someone's driving, but usually camera on. And we're there. And I will tell you one of my favorites, and I have to give credit to an amazing law student who wrote a law review article, now practicing lawyer. It's why we're doing this. Because Texas, it's known for its business. 2.5 trillion economy. 8th largest economy in the world. Larger than Canada, Russia, Brazil. It's unbelievable. Right there about to be with France. We have the litigation. We are the most litigious state in the country. Over 1.6 million cases filed as of 2020 in 2022 alone. We are the second most litigious is Florida, 36% less than us. We have over 100,000 members of the bar. Open paren, thus the need to differentiate yourself. Create that brand you earn. So my point is this. We had the business, we had the litigation, but we weren't known for the business litigation conduit. And that's what we hope to do with the business court. We're making headlines. People are coming.
It's, again, through line, taking advantage of the opportunities that are already there. We have the business.
Right.
We have the litigation, or
right.
the people who have expertise in litigating these issues.
Yes.
And the business court just seems to be the next step in that, or the, what's the word? It is the predictable next step.
It's a logical progression.
Yes.
That's right.
So we've spoken a lot about throughout your career, you've been involved in so many organizations and associations. How do you recommend us as young lawyers and law students get involved in things that will be meaningful for our career?
Great question. For your career? Okay.
For us.
And for you. Because if it's for you, it'll be for your career. So, maybe you care deeply about kids. Maybe you care deeply about animals. Maybe you care deeply about the empowerment of young girls. Maybe you've had a family member with drug abuse. Maybe you came from an abusive situation. All of those are causes I was involved with. Maybe you had someone that had a health care crisis. I served on a hospital system board for 10 years, 2 different. I was one of the inaugural presidents of Girls Inc. of Greater Houston, inspire all girls to be strong, smart, and bold. I served at the request of a client on the Drug and Alcohol and Recovery Board. You name it, I've done it. I wanted to support one of my 3 children who's all about animals. And at the same time, Mayor Parker, Rice graduate, dear friend, said, the city of Houston Bark, the shelter needs a pick-me-upper and needs a refresh. Can you become involved? We created the first City of Houston dog walk that now has raised millions. And you just gather your friends. I did all the IP for them. I got it all, I created all this brand around it. Then we got it IP'd with a friend. Then my son wanted to do was an athlete, but then it wasn't just gonna be about athletes and doing things, but we did an entire baseball program for kids that didn't have the economic means. Then my daughter, my 3rd, wanted to go into fashion. I said, okay, let's do that. But let's do fashion for a cause. So we raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for aids to victims of domestic abuse. Find your passion. And with that passion, Houston is rich with nonprofit endeavors. We are one of the most philanthropic places. You can even do, let's make it tangible. Let's now make it more real, like you wanted me to. Career. You go and you get to your firm, you get to your small firm, your big firm, your medium-sized firm, the DA's office, whatever. You absolutely adore that one lawyer you're working with. That person has the soul that you want. Say, are you involved in something? Do you need any help? What are you doing?
Following up a bit on Jeffrey's question about the pressure of being a judge and how you handle your temperament, what is your goal as a judge?
That's a great question. I would say, first of all, on the temperament issue, obviously we've all heard the term judicial temperament. I thought about it a lot. I read about it, I studied it, and I'm actually, indulge me as I look at my notes, because I thought about this a significant amount because it's a real art, and I'm definitely seeking to accomplish it. I'm hoping one day that I truly do. And it talks about sound judicial temperament needing a keen sense of justice, intellectual serenity, and a reverence for the law, but appreciation that the role of law is not static and unchanging. It mandates an ability to be even-tempered yet firm, open-minded yet willing and able to reach a decision, confident but not egocentric, with measured restraint and intervention. It is respect for all those that appear, and equal treatment and fairness, not arbitrariness, and an open consideration of all participants. A judge must be fair, impartial, unbiased, and apply the law as written, following binding precedent, cornerstone of our system of justice. So that is a lot of studying of a lot of law review articles, everyone from Justice Holmes all the way to Life of Law. To that end, I've got to do one quotation that I read and focused on when I did the HBF speech that I think you will enjoy within this, and I'll return to judiciary in just a moment. That we as lawyers don't build bridges, we don't raise towers, we don't construct engines. there is little that we do that which the eye of the man can see, but we smooth out difficultness, we relieve stress, we correct mistakes, and we take each man or woman's burdens, and by our efforts, we make possible some modicum of a peaceful life and the achievement of justice, which is not insignificant. So toward that end, in terms of being a great judge, Justice Wilson, who also proud U of H Law School graduate, he has these fabulous articles in The Advocate, which is an editorial. It's the most important publication of the state bar. Editor-in-chief is Professor Hoffman, U of H Law. Justice Wilson first wrote about being a judge. He said, be prepared for the hard first couple of years, the hardest CLE, continuing education of your life. And it is for me. As I told you, I'm always in finals mode. But he said, remember the Rule 1 of the Texas Rules of Civil Procedure should be your North Star. What is our goal? The proper objective of the Civil Rules of Civil Procedure: to obtain just, fair, equitable, and impartial adjudication of the rights of the litigants under established principles of substantive law. And to that end, it should be with great expedition and dispatch, with least expense to the litigants, but impracticable. And rules should be given liberal construction, because you do need to get it right at the end. But he also said, and this probably encapsulates my goal of anyone that comes before me, I want them to feel that I've adhered to the golden rule. And what did he say it was? To treat the lawyers and the parties as you wish you had been treated when you were standing before the judge. So that's really what I aspire to do. So, doing my darndest toward intellectual serenity, keen sense of justice, and everything else.
Again, that is a noble North Star to have as you're approaching litigants who come before you, treating everybody as you would have liked to be treated if you were standing at that court. Well, Judge Adrogué, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Emphasis Added. Before we close, is there anything you'd like to share with our audience, whether it's advice or something pertaining to the future of law?
About the future of law, I'll say a tiny bit and then I'll just give life advice. On the future of law, in some ways, I feel for you guys, gender neutral. It's tough. AI, it's here. Chief Justice Roberts' last year's letter to the bar talked about AI's here. It will be implemented in the courts. AI's here. It's being utilized for research. It makes it that much harder for you to create that perfect corporate document. Makes it that much harder for you to create that perfect discovery question. What that does is makes all of us have to step up even more. It's not easy to differentiate yourself. That may be why. Then you go into what I would offer. I've already talked about the grit, grind, and the gravitas, and always remember the gratitude. I would say to you that I always talk about the preparation and the perspiration and the persistence. Talked about the passion. Panache, that's the little special dessert you bring to the table. Now, if you get some power, use it wisely and sparingly. I would say to you, carpe diem every day. Not easy. Whatever you can do. When you're leaving that office that day, whatever it is, for whatever it's worth, this generation, if you have the luxury of being at the office or not, be at the office. Home or not home, be at the office. Be at the office. Of course it's more comfortable being in your black sweats and hanging out and drinking the extra cup of coffee. Ask if you can bring those black sweats to the office on Friday. Be at the office. Show up. You never know who's going to go where. And you can be casual, just bring the extra black blazer. Always have a coat and tie. Always have a black blazer. whatever it may be, whatever color you want. I just happen to love black. I did the aberration white to point of differentiation. But getting back to the AI, the law, and a few quotations. One of my favorite is to shun the incremental and go for the leap. Sadly, I don't know that your generation is going to get to do too much in increments. Because AI, for instance, I said it's here. But that's the beauty, though, because AI's here, but the human factor will be the point of differentiation. That's why everything we've talked about the education, the engaging, the connectivity, the showing up, the inspiring, and the inclusion of everybody, and the diversity along the way. Diversify your friends. I don't mean just ethnically, obviously ethnic, I'm Hispanic, but beyond that, all ages, all walks of life. That will make you also a better human and a better lawyer. To be a better leader and have a richer life, you need to act with authenticity by clarifying what's important and act with integrity, respecting the whole person. Act with creativity by experimenting with how things get done, and always lead with a heart, a moral compass. It's been an honor. Never thought I'd be on Law Review. Didn't know what Law Review was. Especially excited you found me, since I haven't been there since 1991.
Judge Adrogué, thank you so much for coming on this episode of Emphasis Added and for inviting us into your beautiful chambers. Usually we have the most bland white background, and this episode we were lucky enough to switch it up and to hear all of your advice, and we're just so grateful.
Well, this has been a treat. And this is an open invitation. Law Review, come on over. We'll plan a road trip. We'll do it. Done. We'll do it. Yep. There you go.
And for our audience, make sure you follow our podcast and give us favorable ratings on whatever platform you use. Also, sign up for the Law Review. The link should be in the bio. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening and or watching Emphasis Adding, a podcast brought to you by Houston Law Review.
If you enjoyed what you heard, please follow us on Spotify, YouTube, or whichever platform you listen to your podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Emphasis Added Pod to keep up when new episodes are dropping.
Additionally, if you'd like to subscribe to Houston Law Review and receive either mailing or an electronic subscription, please find the link below.
Thank you.